Inscriptions have been talked about quite a lot recently. Now that we know that inscriptions are going to be better tailored towards the gear that you get, I think now is a good time to go over every single inscription and what exactly they do. Because some of them are very confusing and there's no explanation in game to what each of them do, so I'm here to do that for you. My name is Ryan Central, you can subscribe for more Anthem content, and if I do miss any inscriptions let me know in the comments below, but I'm pretty sure I got them all. This video took a lot of information from the False Demise Reddit post going over inscriptions, and this has also been confirmed by some of the devs to be real. But some of these are subject to change, no doubt the terminology for a lot of these will be changed in the future, but the first thing that we need to go over are the icons that appear in front of inscriptions, because these are incredibly important and each affect the context on how good some inscriptions can be. The first icon is the full javelin suit, and any inscription that has this icon means that whatever this inscription is, it applies to all of your suit, all of your gear. So for example, if you got a sniper rifle with 20% damage on with this icon, not only would the sniper rifle do 20% more damage, but your abilities will do more damage, your ultimate, your melee, you get the idea. It's a universal buff to your damage. However, if you have the gear icon, if you see this, then it means that the inscription only applies to the item that it's on. For example, 20% damage sniper rifle, if you have the gear icon, it means that it only increases the damage of the sniper rifle by 20%, not your abilities, not your melee, not your ultimate. For the most part, you'll see the javelin and gear icons the most, and as we go through the inscriptions, I will highlight which ones are universal, but also which ones tend to be just gear slot specific. We'll start with damage. As I went over, you can have base damage increases, for example 4-5% damage, which would increase the damage of literally everything that you use, so long as you have that component, ability or weapon equipped. You then also have weapon damage, which is spelled out WEAP damage, which increases all of your weapon damage in total. You then have in brackets weapon damage, which basically means that some of these inscriptions might say LMG or shotgun or sniper rifle as examples, which obviously increase the damage of that weapon type. So basically, if it says WEAP damage, so WEP damage, it means it increases all of the damage to your weapons, so long as it's not got a gear icon in front of it. We then have elemental damage. When it says this, it increases the damage of all elemental attacks and all elements. So no matter if it's fire, ice, electric, you'll do more damage. But this also includes abilities, weapons, melee and ultimates that do elemental damage. For example, this would be really good for the storm, where your ultimate, your melee and all of your abilities use elemental damage. So perfect really, because it increases all element damage. You then of course have specific element damages, so this might read acid damage, fire damage, ice damage, and that of course increases the damage specifically of the element mentioned. But again, this could apply to abilities, melee, weapons and ultimates that use that element. So pay attention to what abilities and weapons use said elements. Just to be clear, when you have a weapon for example that says plus 7% damage for ice, that doesn't mean that it adds element damage to that weapon. It just increases the damage of that element on other stuff. If you have a shotgun that has 7% damage for ice, it doesn't mean that that shotgun now does ice damage. Other damage increase infusions include combo damage, which increases the damage for detonating a combo, ultimate damage, which increases damage caused by your ultimate, and also melee damage, which again increases melee damage. Fairly straightforward to explain those ones. We then come on to another important inscription, and that's speed. And that basically decreases the time that you're waiting for abilities. I don't think that there's an inscription in the game that just increases speed on everything. These tend to be gear specific. For example, you might have one that says gear speed, which reduces cooldown of all skills, but that tends to only apply to that ability that it's on. If you have an ability that says gear speed increase, it will only apply to that ability and not to your other one. If you have a weapon, ability or component that increases gear speed for something else, it will say the keybind that that ability is on. For console, it will say left bumper or right bumper. For PC, it'll either say Q or E, and that will decrease the cooldown of that ability. No matter what ability is in that slot, it will decrease the cooldown. You then also have support speed, which decreases the cooldown of your support ability, and also ultimate speed, which increases the rate that you get your ultimate. Now we get into weapon inscriptions, and this is where it gets wild. Of course, we went over damage increases for literally every weapon that you'd use, weapon damage which increases all weapon damage, basically all of your shooty guns, and then of course specific weapon type damage. You also have weapon fire rate, which increases the fire rate of that weapon, This is only applied to the specific weapon that it's on. This can't be universal. You can't increase the fire rate of a sniper rifle unless that sniper rifle specifically has the fire rate inscription. Does that make sense? You then have ammo, clip, and magazine size. 3 inscriptions that sound like they do the same thing, and 2 of them kinda do. So if you have an inscription that increases your ammo, it increases your ammo reserve that you can hold at one time. If you had a weapon that could hold 200 bullets, in total, that could be increased to 250 to 300, as an example. If you have an inscription that says clip, it increases your clip/magazine size for every single weapon that you equip, which is different to the inscription for magazine size, which does the same thing, but only for the specific weapon that it's on. Again, very confusing. This is one of the inscriptions that needs fixing. So if it says clip, it increases the magazine size for all of your weapons that you can use, versus magazine size, which is only applicable to the specific weapon that that inscription is on. You then have recoil for aim and recoil for hip, which reduces your recoil with certain weapons when aiming down sights and also from the hip. You have reload time, which reduces your reload time, again only applicable to the weapon that it's on, I believe. And then one that just says aim, which I assume is reducing the spread of weapons like your LMG, where the longer you shoot, the higher your spread becomes. No confirmation on that one just yet. One final one to note about the gear ability pieces that we haven't gone over yet. We've of course highlighted damage and cooldowns, which can be affected by inscriptions, but also gear charges, which increases the number of charges a gear piece has. But I believe this only works for abilities that have additional charges. For example, the frost shards have 10 charges, the venom darts have 2, so you can maybe get this inscription that increases the amount of charges that you have. Now to go over some other DPS related inscriptions. We start with impact and blast damage, and how there's a lot of confusion around those abilities. Going off this tweet I got from Darren, who is one of the gameplay producers for Anthem, he says that impact damage applies to any single target gear ability. So for example, a missile, a flat cannon, any ability that only hits one target. Blast damage is damage from AoE abilities, so grenades, mortars, explosive abilities, right? Basically, if there's an explosion, it's a blast damage ability. If it's a homing missile, it does like piercing damage, that's an impact ability. And some of these inscriptions will have blast or impact damage. Nice straightforward one though, critical damage, it increases the damage of critical attacks, so hitting headshots, shooting weak points, that kind of stuff, and it only applies to the gear piece that it's on. And then you have physical, which has nothing to do with melee abilities, it increases the physical damage of that weapon. You have a sniper rifle as 100% increased physical, it means that that sniper rifle does 100% more physical damage. You then have one called Force, which again, very confusing, very vague, but it decreases the amount of damage that it takes to stun or stagger an enemy. If you have an ability that has a Force inscription on it, and a lot of it, you hit a target with that ability, you can knock a flying scat out of the air, stun an Ash Titan or an Ursix, you get the idea. The more Force, the more likely you are to stagger an enemy. You then also have effects, which increase the status effect of all elements on enemies. A lot of elemental abilities and weapons will have the effect stat on them, and the higher the status of effect, the more likely that you are to prime elites or boss enemies. Let's compare Venom Dart and Frost Grenade. Venom Dart has a status of 15, whereas the grenade has 60, meaning that the Frost Grenade is much more potent and much more likely to prime a beefier target if it hits than a Venom Dart. Basically, increasing effect equals increasing potency and the likelihood of you priming a beefier, much harder to kill target. It also could increase duration, I'm not 100% sure on that one though. So if it says effect on its own, it will increase the status effect of all elements on enemies. But sometimes you can have ones that say element effect, which increases the status effect of fire, acid, electricity, depending on which one it says. Now to go over some health, shield and resistance related inscriptions. You have Armor Max, which increases your armor maximum health, which is the green health. Then you have Shield Max, which increases your shield maximum health, which is the blue health. Those are fairly straightforward. The more of those that you have, the better your health in general. But then we have some more inscriptions that are very confusing. Shield Delay and Shield Refresh. When all of your shield health is depleted, it takes a couple of seconds for you to start recharging it up again. Shield Delay is that time, so the more shield delay that you have on an inscription, it reduces the time it takes to recover your shields from losing them, because obviously you get penalized for a bit when the shields are completely depleted. Shield refresh is how quickly it recharges once it starts recovering. So if we're looking on screen, I go down and lose my shield health. This is affected by shield delay, but as soon as my shield starts regenerating, that is shield refresh. So ultimately, shield delay is a lot more important out of the two. You then have resist, which reduces all damage that you take. But you can also have physical resist, which reduces all damage that you take from physical attacks, I suppose. You also have effect resist, which reduces damage from all elemental attacks. And then of course specific examples of elements such as acid resist, frost resist, those kind of things, which of course resist those specific elements, meaning that you take reduced damage, and are less likely to be set on fire, frozen, being affected by those effects. Having fire resist wouldn't be a bad thing if you're going up against a lot of Ash Titans, for example. You have some inscriptions also for flying. The first one is Thrust of Life, which is the duration of you flying and I guess hovering in the air. You then have Thrust of Speed and then Overheat Delay. Having the Thrust of Speed inscriptions increases your cooldown of your flight resource. So before I start to overheat here, I'm going to stop flying. Thrust of Speed has to do with how quickly that resource replenishes. Whereas Overheat Delay, as you see in here, I overheat. You can see that I have a debuff in the top left of my screen that the game punishes me for overheating, and then it starts replenishing. Having more Overheat Delay reduces the time that I'm recovering and waiting for my flight resource to come off cooldown again. Again, another very confusing one out of the two. We have a few more to go through. You have the specific javelin ones. There might be more than these, but we know for sure that the Storm has one called the Combo Augment. I'm not going to go over each of the javelin combo effects, but most of you know when a Storm combos a target, it spreads the elemental effect onto nearby people. So if the target's frozen, you detonate that combo, targets nearby will also be frozen. Well, this increases the effect of that, increasing the number of combo chains to 2, branches to more enemies nearby. Then for the Interceptor, you have the Aura effect, which increases the damage of the Interceptor's Aura Pulse, which of course he gets when he detonates a combo. It also has a damage over time component coming in an upcoming patch too. As I said, there might be more specific ones, but I haven't seen them myself. And then finally we have some more miscellaneous inscriptions that you can get on gear. You have Harvest Bonus, which increases how much resource that you harvest from plants or ranger parts, for an example. You basically get more if you have more harvest bonus. Repair drop rate, this is how often health packs drop from enemies, but the repair drop amount, or repair amount, is how much you get healed per health pack. So drop rate is how often it drops, repair amount is how much you get healed from each individual health pack. You then again have ammo drop rate, which increases how often ammo drops from enemies, the drop amount, which is how much ammo you get in one go, and then supply drop rate, which increases equipment drop chance, which should increase how much all of it drops. This isn't items. Penultimately, you have the pickup radius, which lets you pick up stuff from further away. And finally, we have support, which is luck, which increases the chance of you getting better loot, both in rarity and amount. And that goes over all of the inscriptions that we know about so far. Do you want me to go through them all again? Some of these are very confusing, some of these are hard to explain. On the face of it, it's just very awkward to know what they do, but I hope that this video answered some of the questions if you had an inscription that you weren't quite sure what they did. I hope that this video answered that question. If I missed any, then let me know in the comments below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Take care.